of Mar-a-Lago. So joining me now is the founder and executive director of the National Security Institute, Jamil Jaffer, who's worked on counterterrorism and intelligence issues on Capitol Hill, the Justice Department, and the White House. Jamil, thanks so much for being here. First of all,
Absolutely.
What do you make of reports that the Justice Department may hold off pressing charges, whatever they may be, against former President Trump until after the election? So do you think that there were any lessons learned from that episode with Comey and Hillary Clinton before the 2016 election?
Well, certainly they're trying to avoid any concern that they might be engaging in political behavior to affect the outcome of an election. And so they're obviously, chastened by what happened during the 2016 elections and are making moves to be more cautious in that sense. That being said, obviously, we've already seen unprecedented activity, a search of a former president's home pursuant to a federal search warrant, and the now disclosure of materials related to that search warrant, the warrant itself, the underlying parts of the underlying affidavit requested by the president, and now additional filings and additional materials based on the president's request for a special master.
Right. And so, but this announcement by DOJ, or this report of an announcement or a decision, 60 days out from an election, they will not bring any charges. Is there a precedent for this sort of thing, aside from the email case in 2016? Or is the 60-day rule a written policy or just an unspoken policy?
Well, I'm not aware of any written policy that DOJ will not take action within 60 days of an election. But I do think that as a sort of an advisory matter, it makes sense to operate in that manner and to be cautious around the timing of an election. You don't want federal charges to affect an election. Now, look, if the charges have to be brought because there's something that needs to be done, then it's important to bring them. If you have time and there's the ability to wait and be more cautious, it makes sense for the Justice Department to do that just in order to protect the rule of law, the reputation and providence of the FBI itself and the Justice Department as well, of which the FBI is a part. I think that's an important thing to do. And obviously, they saw what happened. They saw the criticism. They've seen the criticism recently. And I think they're responding to that. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for them to be aware and cognizant of that and trying to protect the rule of law in this country.
Sure. Okay. So do you think basically the 60-day rule, if it's true, would be good news for the former president, or it could be somehow worse since people will just be wildly speculating, especially after the photo and those documents on the floor were released last night?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure how this cuts in terms of the former president's efforts. Thus far, things that I think people generally expected would be harmful to the president, the fact that he had these classified documents, that the Justice Department had to go get a search warrant for them, have actually appeared to have strengthened him amongst his base in the sense that his base has taken the view that he's under pressure from the Justice Department, that they're unlawfully in law. You've seen Republicans in Congress defend him. So, in a lot of ways, it actually seems to have worked in his favor, even though what we're seeing may be evidence potentially of improper behavior, maybe even criminal behavior.
Right. And doesn't the DOJ realistically need more than possessing these documents to bring whatever charges they're considering bringing against the former president? I mean, I don't want to ask you to speculate too much, but what conceivably, and everything you've seen so far in the court documents, the highly unusual nature of this investigation and this search, what do you think they're thinking in terms of potential charges?
Well, I think there are two major charges we can talk about, three, right? There's the one, which is the Espionage Act. And the relevant part of that is that you had documents relevant to the national security, the national defense. You knew you had them, you were asked for them, and you didn't give them back, right? They seem to think that's one of the interesting charges they could bring. Now, this most recent filing, though, suggests they have a potential charge on obstruction, right? The idea that documents were intentionally removed from that storage room, moved elsewhere, the fact that the FBI found documents in the president's office, right, might suggest an effort to obstruct. And then finally, the most vanilla of charges might be something related to the Federal Records Act, improper storage or retention of documents under the Federal Records Act or the Presidential Records Act. So those are the three major statutes that might be in play here.
Okay. Well, one other quick topic when we're talking about the Department of Justice, the Attorney General Merrick Garland issued a memo to staff this week banning them from political events heading into this election ahead of the midterms, as the Department and the FBI are under fire, particularly from Trump supporters. This feels like a PR move on one hand. On the other hand, it feels like common sense to me that you would keep people away from political events who work for the Department of Justice and the FBI. What do you think is going on here? Is this kind of a PR move, or is this just sort of a common sense, good policy move?
Well, as a general matter, certain senior level folks at the Justice Department and prosecutors are generally under what's called the Old Hatch Act, which bars you from engaging in most forms of political activity other than voting. And what the AG has done as a matter of policy is extended that to all Justice Department employees in an effort to address the very real criticism that they've faced here in the aftermath of this search, this unprecedented search. And so I think he's responding in part to that. You know, whether it's a PR move or not, it's probably a smart move in the sense that they are under significant amount of fire because of the decisions they've made to go down this road, whether right or wrong, they are under a lot of fire.
Absolutely. Okay, Jamil Jaffer, thank you.